Thank you. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you.
Break a leg.
Or two. Good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure to be here with you today. It really is. You might have heard me say this before. Spiritism has given me two great gifts that changed my life. The first one was the ideas and the way of looking at the world that completely changed who I am today in many different ways. And I venture to say that I would be a much more annoying human being were it not for Spiritism. So I'm very grateful for that. I sought that out. I wanted to see things differently. That I expected. What I did not expect was the second gift of Spiritism, which was the people that I've met along the way that I would never have met if it were not for Spiritism, for having a chance to be with different people, to get to know different people. Steven is a dear friend that I've also almost like a brother to me, and many of you also very dear to my heart. And I would not have met you were it not for a chance for us to have conversations such as this one, which I think is so important. So thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being you. And also, if you haven't had a chance yet to meet your friends here, please make sure that you say hello and introduce yourself to each other, because you may walk out of here today or the next days or months or whatever it is with friends for life. It's really a great thing. And the world nowadays is, it's hard, right? It's a little bit challenging. We could all use a friend. We could definitely do, because there's so much fear, there's so much violence, there's war, there is anxiety. There is a sense of lack of purpose. We don't know what we're doing. What should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? We know that the world is going to a transition that is pretty important and pretty powerful. We have reached a point in our collective human history in which we need to make a difference, make different choices. Because I think we can all agree that the world outside is not working out for everybody. And maybe it could be better, right? So a lot of it has to do with the choices we make and how aware are we of who we are and what is it that we want to be. And so there has been a lot of talk about consciousness. We see science diving a little bit deeper into that. And what is consciousness? It's a great question. People will define it differently, right? But for us, Spiritists, we can kind of equate consciousness to awareness, to our spirit, to our true sense. And then the question becomes, what's going to happen to the world? And how do we develop our consciousness, our awareness, so that we can make a better place? And for the next 4 hours and a half, we're going to... I saw some faces there, some eyes open really, really wide. For the next 40 minutes or so, right, maybe a little bit less, we're going to have a conversation about a little story so that we can kind of try to put that into more practical terms for us, if possible. We can go into the science of consciousness and this perception of science finally catching up to the idea that we are more than the physical body and so forth. But we can keep it simple and relate it to something that really at the end of the day is what we want to do, which is find ways so that we can grow ourselves. Because here's a hard truth I think the world does not want to know. I think that everybody wants change. The challenge is that few of us want to change. What we do is we want other people to change. If only so-and-so was nicer to me, if only so-and-so were kinder to somebody else, more conscious or more aware, or more, the world will be better. But seldom do we look inside and say, what is it that I need to do and change to make the world a better place? Because the truth is, once we change the way we look at things too, we change the world for ourselves. It is possible for us to be in this world full of trials and tribulations and challenges and be happy. It is possible. And that's sort of our goal. We have come to grow and learn, right? So how can we do that? And so to make an example of this, hopefully it will make sense to you. You be the judge of that, right? I want to tell you about this little place over here. It's called the Anza Borrego Desert And it's near where I live. It's in San Diego, California. It's a huge park. It's a state park. It's the largest state park in California, the third largest park in the United States. It's not very well known. Very few people know it. It's really big. For you to have an idea of how big it is about 650,000 acres. That might not mean much to us, but to put that in perspective, it is larger than County Louth, right? That's just a park. And that's what it looks like. It's a desert. And there's a beauty in it. There is something to be said about the beauty of the desert that I'm coming to appreciate in many different ways. But what I think about Anza Borrego Desert that I think is really interesting is that every once in a while, under special conditions, something happens. When there is enough rain in the winter, which is hard to come by sometimes in December, and when there are enough hot temperatures in the spring, some parts of the Anza Borrego Desert turn from this to this. It's incredible. If you've ever been there, you go, how could that possibly be? This is a desert. How can this possibly happen? And what's fascinating is, as you can see, there are different colors and different things, and scientists have figured out that depending on how much water and how much heat, there are different flowers that thrive in it. So you get a different bloom. They call this the super bloom when that happens, which it doesn't happen every year. It doesn't happen often. But when it does, it's a spectacle. It's incredible because it just seems like it's barren land, seems like there's nothing out there, and all of a sudden you come back a month later and it looks like this. And it's just gorgeous. And so, obviously, for this to happen, there are certain special conditions, but what's interesting too is to know that these flowers, that these seeds are already there to begin with. Just waiting for the right conditions to be able to bloom and grow. And without those conditions, it's a desert. But when the proper conditions present themselves, we get this. And so I wonder, could we do that to ourselves? Could we do our own super bloom of consciousness? Because we have in us everything that we need from a spiritual, emotional, intellectual perspective to bloom and be happy and grow. And to be able to be flowers amidst the desert of the world. And so how can we do that is the question. For me, Spiritism is a really great way of going about this. This way of thinking, like I said, transformed my life, but I also equate Spiritism to a pair of glasses, to lenses. Because when I think with my spiritual brain, so to speak, with my spiritual consciousness, when I put this perspective on, it becomes a lot easier for me to understand the world and understand why are things different for some people and to others, why are some hardships that don't present themselves to everybody, why is it that some people have some trouble with some opportunities and others have more opportunities, more means, and there's a lot of things that I get to understand because of reincarnation, because of the spirit, and understanding that my life today is but one episode of my larger spiritual life. The series, right? The Netflix series. Like this life is one episode, but there is a whole series of episodes before and after that I don't always get to understand because I haven't seen or remember the past episodes, but this episode is the continuation of the previous episode. So when I get that, I take some lessons away from the super bloom, and I try to apply that to the super bloom of the spirit, so to say. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today, almost like we're making a modern day parable, right? So that hopefully this story will stick with us so that we can find ways in our daily lives after we leave here to think about how is it that we can dig deeper to get to know ourselves better, and in the process of getting to know ourselves better, find ways to grow forward, be happier, more fulfilled citizens in a world that definitely needs our help. Yeah. So what are these 5 lessons, these 5 takeaways that I think about when I think about the super bloom of the spirit? Well, the first one I sort of talked about before, which is to make those flowers bloom, we really need the right conditions. That is something that we take from the super bloom. And what does that mean? That what really blooms here too, you can't see because it's a little bit gray at the bottom, but what blooms depends on the conditions you create, right? Like I told you, the amount of water and the amount of heat determines what kind of colors and what kind of flowers you get. So, if we were to break this down in a very scientific but non-scientific way, what happens and what's needed for the super bloom are 4 different things. One of them is we need rain. Obviously, there is a soil, and the seeds are already in the soil. They're dormant, right? They are just sitting there for years and years and years until the right conditions come, and you need the temperature. And I find that fascinating because if we were to make a modern-day parable, like I said, we can see that there are some things we can control and some that we cannot. But like rain, for instance, the amount of water we put in our gardens is something we can control. We may not control the rain, but figuratively speaking, if you're planting something in your garden, you can decide how much water you put. And I call that our intentions and efforts. We can decide how much effort and intention we put onto things. That we can control. Now, what's interesting here too is that the soil is us. It's our personality. Is that who we are? With all the experiences that we had before. The seeds are all the opportunities and experiences we experienced before that are latent in our souls that we may remember from this life or not remember from this life and don't remember from previous lives. But we have all this incredible trove of experiences that we can use to grow and make ourselves better. And there's other components here too, right? The temperature, for instance. The temperature, I take it to be the outside world that you cannot control. There are things that you're going to be exposed to in your life that you just cannot control. And we have to be okay with that and understand that part too, right? There are things you can control, there's who you are, your experiences, and there is things that you cannot control, and you have to be okay with that. I think oftentimes we struggle because we want to control everything. We want things to be a specific way. We want our jobs to go away. We want our lives to go away. We want our partners to behave a specific way. We want our family to do specific things. But truth is, we're one of 8 billion in this planet. And we cannot all have our ways. So there are things that we can control and things we cannot control. And so what should we do? What we should do is focus on what we control. That's what good gardeners do. Gardening is inside work. It is about going deep and working on yourself. We can control the amount of water we put in our gardens, but we cannot change the temperature outside. And we cannot change the soil, really. We've got to know what the soil is and decide how much water our flower needs. So one of the things that we need to kind of ask ourselves is, how much effort do I want to put into my own growth? And am I doing it consistently? So what are the things in your life that you want to change? And are you making sure that you're focusing on those? Because there's some things that maybe we won't be able to really affect great change on, not directly. But those things that we can control, how we treat other people, how we treat ourselves, how much effort we put into our studies of whatever it is, how much effort you put into your work, how much effort you put into your relationship. All of these things are things that we can control. So the question becomes, are we aware of the things that we can control? And are we putting the proper effort into these things? What is important to you? What is it that you want to do and change? Is that clear for you? And if that is clear for you, then how are you going about achieving this? There's a wonderful sentence from Alice in Wonderland that I like from the rabbit that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I think it's very beautiful, like funny and philosophical at the same time. So sometimes we go about our lives and we just take any roads and we're in a hurry. We're in a hurry to get to a place that we don't know what it is. So we need to stop a little bit sometimes and reflect, what is it that we want from this life, from our relationships, from whatever it is. Everybody wants something slightly different. I think we all want to be happy. We all want to make something that is constructive and impactful for the world. But what that looks like will be different from each one of us. And we just have to pay attention to what is it that our hearts and our minds and our consciousness tells us that we should be doing. Sometimes we're really waiting for somebody else to tell us because it's easier. Sometimes I hear a lot, oh, I don't know what my mission, my purpose in life is. And we're seeking for somebody else to tell us what is it, this thing that we need to do, and the world is so lost. I talk to a lot of people. I'm also an executive coach, and I talk to a lot of people who are successful and they're trying to figure out their way in life, and it's surprising to see how many, quote, successful people are just as lost as any one of us. It's fascinating, because we're all looking for meaning. And then people ask, oh, what's my purpose in life? What is my mission in life? What if, I posit, what if our mission in life is to find out what our mission in life is? Right? The truth is, you are a garden, your soil of wonderful things. You can do so many different things. Maybe it's not about finding out the thing you're meant to do. Maybe it's deciding what is it that you want to do. And that is the thing you're meant to do. So what is it that you're controlling that you can control? And what are the things that you're trying to control that you cannot control? Right? I know that there's only one thing I can control, and barely, in this world, which is me. Barely. Right? I cannot control other people. So focus on that. What is it that we can control? Something else that's important too, I think is connected to that, is good gardeners know their soil. And if we are talking about the soil being us, then it is really important for us to see what lies beneath ourselves. Right? In many different ways, reincarnation in the psyche, in the study of psychology, for instance, really helps us understand who we are. Because we can understand that we are the result of all our traumas, our experiences, our happiness that we had in this life and in previous ones. So it's important for us to dig deep into the soil to find out what kind of seed is in there, because if we don't know what kind of seed is in there, how do we know how much water we need to put in the soil? Maybe we're putting too much water for that kind of seed. Maybe we're putting not enough water for that kind of seed that we want to. So we need to put effort into it, but we also need to do this deep dive into ourselves to find out who we truly are. Most of the time, all of us may have a little bit of a distorted view of who we are compared to what people think we are. Like, I'll give you an example to make it easier, because sometimes it gets really abstract, right? I sometimes think, like I have a friend, let's use this example instead, that thinks he's really patient, but you haven't seen him driving, right? He considers himself to be the most patient person in the world, but when he's driving, oh my goodness, he is not kind, right? And he didn't notice that. He just didn't notice that, because in his mind, he's a kind person. But when he comes to certain circumstances, he's not very kind at all, right? Now, we can blame that on the traffic outside and the external conditions, and all that could be true. But how you react to that is your decision. There are a lot of knuckleheads, a lot of people who shouldn't be driving or are not kind drivers, but yelling and honking at them may not be the best way of getting to change behavior. Right? It just doesn't work. So how is it that we are going to react to that? So it's important for us to know ourselves. Once we know that in that condition, I am not very patient and I want to be a patient person, now I can try to figure out what kind of water I will put into that behavior. Put in different ways, if I know that I am a nervous driver, before I get in my car, I can say, I'm working on this. I know that I struggle with this. I will pay extra attention today not to be driven crazy, pardon the pun, right? While I'm driving. Right? Do you get my meaning? So it's important for us, but without us knowing that we're doing this, without him knowing that he was not a patient driver, he would not be able to change that behavior. We can say in a roundabout way that behavior, that kind of behavior he had was unconscious to him. He was not aware of it. And if we take a wonderful quote by this psychologist that you may have read about, or some of you are interested in Spiritist psychology in general, with Joanna De Angelis, she talks a lot about Carl Gustav Jung. And he has a wonderful sentence. He says, our job, and I'm paraphrasing, is to make, and this is the quote, the unconscious conscious. We need to dive deep into who we are and understand who we are that we have not realized and thought about, and make that conscious and bring that to our awareness. Once we bring those things that we need to change or the qualities we have to our awareness, we can work with them. But if we don't, it will be like putting water in a garden and waiting for something to happen. It might not be what you want to. And so if you don't want the flowers you're getting today, you need to try something different. For you to just get those flowers out and do the same thing again, it's madness. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It doesn't make sense, does it? It's just hoping that something will change. And that doesn't really take place, right? And so once we look at that a little bit, with the idea of Kardec, with Joanna DeAngelis and Young there, I put their pictures here to make sure they're watching over me so that I don't mess up big time. But the idea here is, if the rain is our intentions and efforts, right? The soil there is our conscious, and what's unconscious is deep under the soil, right? It's like deep in the soil. We need to dig up a little bit. And how can we do that? By just noticing ourselves. Just noticing our patterns, right? If, for instance, I'm an impatient person and I think people should do my will, and it happens, right? We're all a little stubborn to degrees. You can ask yourself, where's that coming from? Was I always like this? Is it because I always had my way and I expect people to have my way? And maybe you won't be able to identify that in this life, but it could come from previous lives. Maybe you had your way with things in previous lives, and such an extent that in this life you're not able to, and that's a lesson for us. Right? I'm not saying that if you're impatient, you were rich and powerful in the life before. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, we should pay attention and try to understand where we come from. And if we cannot find the cause, because we know that nature has cause and consequence. And Kardec said something brilliant. He says that obviously every consequence has a cause. And if you cannot find the cause of these consequences in this lifetime, then they must necessarily come from a previous life. So if some of your traits, some of your behaviors, some of your things, you cannot find a reason for them in this life, it might be that they're a carryover from before. Now, does it really matter? Not as much, right? Where they come from is not as important as what is it that you want to do with them. But sometimes we are curious about what are the causes so that we can address them, right? But more important is, what is it that we're going to do? So if water is intention and effort, and we have the conscious and unconscious going on here, then we also should know that we have not just negative experiences within us. Sometimes when we're doing our self-work inside, we tend to see just the things we're not great at. And then we feel down about ourselves a little bit. And then we develop all kinds of traumas and complexes, and we just think we're the most horrible person in the world. So be forewarned. If you are doing this dive and you're trying to find out who you are, it's possible that in the beginning, you are going to see things you do not like. And that's okay. But that's not the only part of you. You also have done wonderful things, and you have the potential to do incredible things, because you were created by this creator, this divine force that we call God, the intelligence of all things, the supreme intelligence of the universe. And if you're created by this all-loving, all-powerful force, then there's definitely a purpose for you in this life and in many lifetimes. And that you are always constantly growing, something we read about and we hear the good spirits telling us throughout Spiritist works, then it is also true that your tomorrow will be a happier one than your yesterday. It makes sense, right? If we're always evolving and if we're always growing, then there's a lot of reason for us to be hopeful. Even in the middle of this difficult world, because we're all going to evolve when we put our work in. And that is important for us to be mindful of and kind to ourselves. Sometimes we are not as kind to ourselves. So if we are immortal spirits and we are always growing, and that seems to be the case, right? I'm being polite here. It is the case. Then it is also true that everybody around us is also evolving. So we also need to give them some grace and be patient with them. They're also working in their garden. They're also tending to their challenges. Which brings us to our next point here, which is good gardeners tend to their gardens. They sow, they weed, and they landscape. Gardening is not a one-time thing where you throw some seeds in there, toss some water, and then you forget it. You have to constantly work on it. You have to check on it and see, are things growing? Do they need more water? Do they have enough light? Is it the right temperature, right? What should I do? Should I do this seed here? This temperature is not going to work out, right? You have to be thoughtful of this, and that requires effort. And that is something sometimes that we struggle with. Because in this world nowadays, we either want immediate gratification or we get immediate frustration. We do something, if it doesn't work tomorrow, I'm done with this. Right? We even have a little bit of a challenge nowadays with relationships because we begin to so-called cancel people. And that's sort of a problem with the world. If we find someone who disagrees with us, has a different view, we automatically don't want to deal with them anymore. When did that happen? How can we possibly grow and have a better world if we can't talk to each other? Mind you, I'm not saying we need to be best friends with everybody around us, but we need to be considerate and thoughtful about different perspectives and understand that even if I don't agree with what you say, you're still a human being. And I don't need to shun you from the rest of my life. Right? A very philosophical example I give, I know I'm full of brilliant and philosophical examples, as you can see, is ice cream. Like, I like strawberry ice cream. You might like chocolate ice cream. Different flavors. But it doesn't mean that we cannot go out and eat ice cream together. We go eat ice cream. You have your chocolate. I don't know why. You would, but you do. I clearly have the better flavor, strawberry. But you know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes we are refusing to be open to other people. Or when we do, we don't know how not to focus on those differences. We all have family that may have different political perspective than us, especially in this world nowadays. And I have seen so many family dinners, so many Christmas dinners, so many Thanksgiving dinners being ruined because people just can't let go of what divides them. Can we focus? If we know that we disagree on some things, can we just focus on the other things? Right? Why is it that we feel like we must have things our way or the highway or nothing else? So that is a behavioral change that we can apply to ourselves. Because if we understand that we are gardens in construction, then we must also understand that other people right beside us, also creatures of the divine, created by God for this wonderful journey that we're in, have the same right and are in the same process. So they're also changing. Oftentimes we ask for grace for ourselves, but we forget to give it out to people. So if each one of us is a work in progress, is a spirit that has been traveling through time and space, through many lifetimes, growing and learning different things, then we need to be more flexible with those around us too. Because they are too. And even when they are stepping on your garden, and sometimes it will happen, right? Even if they don't like you, it really is not that they don't like you, it's that they're trying to be happy on their way, and they think that by doing that they will get to the happiness, and they don't know yet that by harming your happiness, it would eventually harm their happiness too. So we need to be more fulfilling to ourselves and more graceful by understanding this journey in general, right? And that's really important for us to pay attention to this, because if we are this immortal spirits that we are, then we're not this physical body. We are temporarily in this physical body, but this is just a packaging, right? In this lifetime, you have come with this package. You were born in a certain place. You look a specific way, you speak a certain language, you have a specific religion, and you are a specific gender. In the next one, You may be in a different place with a different religion, because religion still is very much a geographical thing, right? Wherever you were born, you sort of like get that a little bit. And you were born in that gender and you speak that language, but that's not who you are. That's just your body. So it becomes harder for us to understand why we are still a little bit judgmental and a lot of discrimination takes place. Because does it make sense to discriminate about what you have been in the past or you may be in the future? When we put these glasses on, when we put our spiritual glasses on and understand that we come to life many times in this planet, as we strive to learn each time a little bit more, it doesn't make sense for me to discriminate. Because tomorrow I might be that which I'm discriminating. I jokingly, sometimes I do this in a different talk, I tell people, like, listen, I mean, it's wonderful to be here in Ireland, but if you were to enter the lottery of reincarnation today, and all things being equal, which there always are, we know we evolve in groups and so forth, but if you think about this, there is a 1 in 2 chances pretty much, well, let's say 1 in 3 chances, that next time around, you might come in either India or China. Just population. That's where it's a slot, right? So if you don't like Chinese or Indian food, my friends, this is the time to start warming up on that. I jokingly say that. It's just a way for me to drive home a point, right? Which is how we show up physically is not as important. How we show up in our behaviors, in our attitudes, in our heart, in our thoughts is what really matters. And that's the consciousness part that we need to work on. To understand that we're part of something greater. And that greater thing asks us to realize who we are. That the shape we're in is not who truly we are. I even tell people, like, would you be able to recognize your best friends or your partners if they did a TV thing? You know, when there is like a investigative like reporting thing where there's a witness and they blur the image and they change the voice, right? Like, would you be able to recognize the people around you just by what they say and not by what they look like? That's an interesting piece. Would we be able to recognize ourselves? Sometimes I do this exercise when I brush my teeth in the morning. I look at the mirror and say, that's not you. That is just temporary you, right? I hope the next time I come back with hair, right? There's a lot of room for improvement. That brings me hope. That brings me hope. But it's important for us to know that. And it's also very important, I think one last lesson here, I know I could talk forever, is that good gardeners know that gardens can inspire. The beauty we create in our lives or we see in others is very powerful. And so one other question I think that is good for us to ask ourselves in our quest to become more aware and evolve our consciousness is, what gardens am I being inspired to and why? What is it that inspires me? What is it that I'm putting my time on? Because that tells you a lot about a lot of things. And the flip side to this is, do you realize that you're also a garden that is an inspiration to others? And you might think, oh, inspiration is too much. I would never. I'm saying, like, people are watching your actions, and sometimes they're being inspired by that. They're being changed and affected by that because we all affect each other. Our presence, the way we act, affects each other. There is no way about it. Of course, we know that we want to control our own actions and not be affected by actions of others that we don't like. But the truth is we're all sending out energy and behavior, and we're all receiving that, and we're in the middle of this crazy world with all kinds of mixed signals about what is important, what is nice, what makes you successful. I mean, there's some mixed signals coming from the world right now. The world's generally telling you nowadays that for you to be happy, you have to be successful, rich, or beautiful, or famous. Yet, we see people who are rich, beautiful, and famous who are not happy. So clearly that is not the recipe for happiness, for success, emotional success. So why are we listening to that garden? Why are we listening to a world giving us advice when that world is not healthy. You don't go to your doctor and ask your doctor to fix your car, and you don't go to your mechanic and ask him for health advice. At least you shouldn't. Public announcement, right? Just in case. So, where is it that you're getting inspiration from? Are you making time to get inspired by things you like? Are you making, what makes your soul breathe? What lifts your heart? Maybe it's going to the museum and be inspired by art. Maybe it's going for a walk in nature. Maybe it's spending time with your friends and laughing. Maybe it's reading something uplifting, or, for some people it's praying. For other people is running or playing sports. Are you making time to be inspired? To get an idea, what is it that you want your garden to be? When we visit other gardens, we get ideas for what is it that our garden could look like. And that's important. It's important to do that. This world has even an expression for it. It's called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. I think it's so dangerous for us to buy into this. Because we're so worried about missing out. We're so worried about FOMO that we try to read and see everything and know about everything. But we're so focused on the outside world that we don't focus on the inside world. We don't tend to our gardens. We're so busy checking out other people's gardens and thinking that they're better than us. And then we don't spend any time in ours. How can you take care of your garden if you don't spend time in it? If you don't tend your garden, if you don't know what's in the soil? We need to put a little bit more effort into our own development. And I'm saying this generally, right? I'm not saying that to you, me too. And spirituality and spiritism is a great way of doing that, because it gives us the spiritual perception of things and understands that as an immortal spirit, I will be okay. I will be okay. You will be okay. Because you have survived 100% of all your worst days in many, many previous lives you have. And this one. You, my friends, are spiritually bulletproof. You can face anything that comes your way. You really can. You really can. As a matter of fact, you have been explicitly trained to deal with the challenges you faced and you face today. All the troubles that you're going through, because all of us, let's be honest, all of us are going through something. We just don't know what it is, right? Social media, I tell people, everybody's always happy in social media. Everybody's living their best lives, but that's not reality. I was joking with our friends yesterday. In social media, everybody travels business class. I have never seen people posting here I am, middle seat, squeezed between two people, the bathroom is right next to me. Now, nobody's sending those images out, right? Because we're so worried about looking the right part. Because we think that everybody else has it figured out. But the truth is, nobody does. That is the hidden secret of gardens. Everybody's tending to their garden, and we just feel like if we send the right image, maybe we won't notice that my garden is not so great. Or maybe I need to catch up because everybody else has a great garden. The truth is, we're all struggling through it. We really are. We really are. So you have been trained to deal with the challenges you face. Because if there is a divine force that governs everything, we call that God. You can call it the Tao, whatever it is that works for you, right? In Spiritism, we call it God. If there is a God, then God is all-knowing and all-loving. And if God is all-knowing and all-powerful and all-loving, then you can only have the challenges that you're able to deal with. If you were presented with challenges that are beyond your ability to figure them out, that would be the gift of a mean God. And if a God were mean, it would not be God to begin with. Does it make sense? So by definition, when you think about this, when you unpack the challenges you face, they are not meant to punish you, they are meant to help you grow. And you have been prepared by the challenges you've faced before to face that challenge. But you only see that when you put your spiritual glasses on. right? And guess what's going to happen after you solve this problem in your life? You're going to get another one. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's going to be a bigger one. It will become a more difficult challenge. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be suffering through it. You're going to get better at it. So it might be that you have more responsibilities, like you've been promoted at work, but you're able to handle more responsibilities, and they might not be as distracting, as difficult, as overwhelming as they were before. But life is growth, and you cannot be growing by just sitting in your couch and watching Netflix forever. I mean, it's nice to do it. You can do it for a little bit, but like, chop, like you gotta grow, right? It's kind of like I equate life to a day of work. You know, you go to work, you get there, you see what you need to do, you work on challenges, you do what you can, you improve things, you work on projects. At night, you go back home, you eat, you rest. In the morning, when you wake up, you go back to work. It's like reincarnation, right? A day of work, right? In this life, in this day of work, we show up, we do our things, we advance our project as much as we can. Then eventually the day comes where we all know this, our physical body is going to perish, it's going to die. We don't die, but our physical body does. We go back home, we rest, we get ready for the next day of work, and then we come and we continue from where we left off. And we have more responsibilities and we get promoted. So the challenges you face today are really the result of your past choices. And they're meant for you to grow. In a roundabout way, with our glasses on again, if you are to put perspective into life, you're going to see that your challenges are a great spiritual complement. Because every time something comes to you that is difficult, it is the universe telling you, congratulations, you can handle this. It's time to level up. Right? We don't see it that way. Because we see that as punishment. All we want to do is be on the beach, doing nothing, with the umbrella, with the little umbrella, you know the little umbrella thing on your drink? I don't know why the umbrella thing in the drink exists, but it does make it nicer. I don't know why. Right? But you know what I'm saying? Like our desire, our hope is to do nothing, and that's not really helpful. We can enjoy breaks, and we should, for sure, right? But we should know that we don't come in this lifetime to get a break. We come to our day of work. We get to rest a little bit more when we go back home. Right? I know, I'm not making friends right now, right? But friends tell friends things that are true so that you don't have to hear from other people in a not so nice way. Right? So what I'm saying is, make sure that you're finding some inspiration in your garden, right? And the question that really wants to be asked, and I think it has been asked for many generations now, is how are you tending to the garden of your consciousness? What is it that you're doing to help you grow? I put this picture here, and this picture is called The Prince of Peace. It was drawn by, I think at the time, she was 9 years old. Her name was Akini. Incredible. 9 years old, doing this. Right? I think I need many lifetimes to get there. I might do a stick figure, right? But that is her impression of Jesus. And I find that very telling. Why? Because I think that we need to reinvent our spirituality. It's time for us to let go of images and preconceptions that were given to us by other people and find out what matters to us. For me, this person, Jesus, is not a religious figure. For me, he's a highly evolved spirit that came to show us by example how to go through the challenges of life with a super consciousness that was focused on what he truly was. People see his message of converting others and suffering at the cross. I don't see that, to be honest with you. What I see is his coming back from death to show that we are more than meets the eyes. And so I know that I will be doing that too. Of course, his followers have not done a great job of communicating that message, in my humble opinion. And I say that full well that I might have been one of those before. Right? Because consciousness and awareness and glasses tells us that we had previous lives before. And so how can we reinvent our conception of what is important to us, our spirituality for us? How can we spend time really figuring out what kind of effort, what kind of water do we want to put in the garden? And what kind of garden do we have? Who are you? You need to know who you are if you want to have a better version of yourself. You need to know where you're starting from to decide what water, what heat, but also know that you will be exposed to conditions outside of your control. The sun and the temperature of the world are not going to change tomorrow. The challenges of the world are going to continue to be the challenges of the world. But how you water your seeds and your soil, how you tend to your flowers, for sure makes a difference. And you were made to do that. You were made to make beautiful gardens. So I hope that as you go out into the world, you know that you are in control of your own actions, as you know, and you can be the bearer of the great consequences. You can do wonderful things by small gestures, by putting effort in your behaviors that you want to change, by putting effort in maintaining the good behaviors you have and growing those too. And when that happens, I will be so excited to see your super bloom. And imagine how beautiful it will be when all of us super bloom together. Imagine how wonderful it will be to live in a world where everybody is more aware and has tapped into their spiritual consciousness. How much kinder we are going to be to each other, how much supportive, how beautiful it will be to walk out into the street and not be afraid of other people. And instead know that if you need something, there will be people to help you, and that you also are going to be willing to step up and help other people. It's going to be beautiful. Living in this planet is going to be incredible and amazing. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. It will take a little bit of time. Maybe a lot of bit of time. But it will happen. Right? And so don't forget that. And don't let the overwhelmingness of life quash you down. Remember that you are this immortal spirit progressing to something amazing, and go make a difference in yourself, because when you make a difference in yourself, you make a difference for the world. So I hope that you have your own super bloom, however fast it comes or not. Be patient with you and continue to work on your consciousness. Does that make sense? That's our message for today. Thank you for listening.